Vish, let's start with Manchester United.
Go on then.
I'm just a bit worried.
Are you?
That
You sound worried. Go on. If you listen back to the intro, you didn't sound worried.
If they win the Europa League, then we're going to have to praise them, okay? And some of this stuff may well be forgotten.
Well, you say that.
Yeah.
There will be probably a moment of praise if Manchester United win the Europa League. Do you trust them to bring it back to the UK in one piece?
They've lost it.
Yeah.
They've absolutely lost it.
Might they, if they qualify for the Champions League, might they pull out of it like they did with the FA Cup that time? Just sort of.
Jim, that's... Obviously, speaking a second language, he's under pressure and annoyed all the time. But Amorim pretty much said that.
Yeah, it's literally the last thing I need.
Yeah.
Also, if it was down to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he'd look at the money that they would earn and wonder actually if there was a way that they could fulfil their obligations as kind of minimally as possible, which in this case would be. Because the TV revenue is such, and it's needed so much for Manchester United next season, that he might just send out the kids or like send out a shadow team to play these Champions League games, so that they could, so there's minimal risk on Manchester United's side, and that's why he's a genius businessman.
Do you think he'll try to sell the Europa League trophy if they win it?
He might do. He could well do repurpose it, like melt it down and sell it.
He could use it to collect all the water from the waterfall.
Yes. It's not a waterfall. It's a leak.
Yeah, but that's a nice way of repurposing that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't fix it, make it a water feature.
Exactly.
That's exactly the kind of management speak he likes.
Seventh wonder of the world.
Whack a couple of quid on the ticket prices because of the water feature. You're away.
Well, obviously they lost at home to West Ham.
That's out of a season of low points. This has to be in the way that West Ham are playing at the moment and have been for a lot of the season. This is a low point for Manchester.
This was their first win since February 27th.
That's bad.
I thought you were about to say 2017.
I thought you were going for the year.
I mean,
feels like it.
This was an absolute shit off again, and West Ham won it. And Amorim said after the game that he will step aside if this poor run of form continues. And I told you, he'll be the first one to walk after Ferguson. Have a bit of dignity. All that I know, managers, because of the way the contracts work, they stick around, right? And I understand that. They think, well, if I'm going to be treated like this is my contract, it's my right, blah 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 blah. I want to see managers, but it's a bit like with the old red cards when a player walks thinking it's a red card. I know it's a red card, and I'm walking. If it's not good enough, then get out of there. Ten Hag should have done it.
Is a burgeoning reputation as a quitter a good thing at that stage in his career?
Well, I no, because for Amorim, I think it would be a case of I can't do anything with this lot. So I think he would spin it around. Whereas if he waits to be sacked, is he going to be dragged down as well? But I mean, it's so funny, isn't it? How the quotes have just got a sort of negative. He's now gone and said this. Fish, that he will walk if this poor form continues. Yeah. What on earth do you think of that? Because some people say this is Danny Murphy was saying this is just too negative.
Yeah, that was interesting. I think part of me thinks he's doing it for preservation of the players, right? Because he said that this team doesn't mind losing and that has to change. So I thought the next thing he was going to say was some of these players need to shape up. And what he said was, and it's all my fault.
Yeah, he did say that, yeah.
And I think it's something we've seen in previous seasons under previous Manchester United managers, that they seem to brush off losing. Obviously, the alarming regularity of the losses this season put it to a different level. But I almost think there's a degree of calculation there from him, which I don't agree with, where he's preempting the negativity by being so negative that the reaction is, for example, us around the table being like, what is he doing? Is he okay?
Rather than Manchester United are bad.
But Pete wondering last week if this was a kink. Those are the conversations he's driving.
It's like a tactic to deflect criticism that's now got to the point where the criticism's just sort of ricocheting back. Yeah,
it's like I've spilled soup on my shirt, so I'll just take my pants off.
Yeah.
The no pants soup man.
Yeah. If he doesn't work at that club, where do they go? But anyway, he's still there, and he will surely, unless he thinks sod this, he'll be there next season. But I mean, highlighting the team's attitude, he said it's mentality. We are not scared of losing a game as Manchester United. I don't think they're scared of losing a game in the Premier League, whereas the Europa League, it has been different. It just has. And I think with them and Spurs, who we'll talk about in a bit,
it just doesn't matter now, does it?
It became apparent into the new year that it's all about the Europa League for those two sides.
Yeah.
So it would have been interesting. Would there have been more of an improvement in the Premier League had they not have had Europa League football? Perhaps. Like certainly with Manchester United, because it would just have to, I think. But I mean, that's, you're into sort of chaos theory there.
He'd have less of a shield, wouldn't he? I suppose you could say the same about Tottenham, as I suppose we're going to later on in the show. But all the feel good and in the stands, all the good news stories, quote unquote, have been in the Europa League. All the most productive on-field play, even like tactically, has also just been in the Europa League.
But what do you think then? He makes those comments, and again, I mean, how true to his words is he going to be? Only time will tell, if indeed it plays out that way. But if he says that, we know he likes to play in a certain way with the formation and blah, blah, blah. Much has been made about, some of those players can't fit the system.
He's tailored it a bit.
He's tailored it a bit, of course he has, yes, exactly. Like Dorgu, for example, is a signing there. Well, presumably then in the summer it's got to be a big summer, as it has for we say this about every club in the Premier League, I know, but for Manchester United, clearly a lot has been made about the quality of player there and maybe not the right type of player for his system and so on and so forth.
They're not scared of losing, but they're also not scared of losing their place in this team because there's no one else to come in.
Well, indeed, maybe there's a bit of that. But if you are the hierarchy of the club, and you're thinking, okay, right, we've got to back him. We've got to go all in and buy his types of players. And then he goes, well, I mean, at the season I might be off. You kind of go, well, we could spend, as we've already seen at Manchester United, a couple of 100 million or whatever the regulations would allow them to spend. And then he just thinks, sod it.
Yeah. It's a sort of dangerous game, isn't it? But I think it really is just a deflection tactic at the moment, and there is a sense for Man United and for Spurs as well that because like essentially the league season's been so silly and it's all or nothing in the Europa League final now. While defeats are meaningless, victories are as well. So I think it just seems like those players.
Respect to home fans. Jim.
I agree, but it seems like they are.
People have travelled around the world to see that game against West Ham.
They may well have done, but that's how it feels, right? Like it feels like the league season is something they just want. It is an inconvenience, and that they're not essentially using it as practice for Europa League.
But you say that, but then Amorim says we should just stay in the Premier League and learn how to be competitive 1 week at a time. Playing in the Premier League and Champions League for us is the moon.
He's talking like he's got them promoted from the Championship, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's like, we've overshot a bit this season by accidentally maybe getting into the Champions League.
Yeah, we're actually ahead of schedule. You're already in the Premier League.
We're ahead of schedule. Oh dear, I don't understand. I mean, Manchester United have only beaten Ipswich Town and Leicester since the end of January.
I was making note of the teams that have done the double over Manchester United this season. I'm glad West Ham are now won.
Yeah, I'm glad that was since the end of January because they did beat Fulham.
Yeah. But the teams that have done the double over them and like in the league specifically, I started making note of them and then it made me sad, so I stopped and I deleted it, so I don't actually have the list to hand. But it's a lot of teams.
6 points off Fulham though.
I wonder if, and maybe I'm meeting you more than halfway here, but maybe this is a bit of another bit of calculation from Amorim that there is a prevailing sense that Manchester United approached him twice to be their manager, and he agreed on the second time. Yeah,
because he nearly went to West Ham.
Yeah, he did.
He avoided that. He dodged that bullet, didn't he? But he's currently, facing
ran into a train.
But then, like maybe the other side of it is also that like they wanted me in here, and if I threaten to walk, will that force a hand? I'm
he probably feels that he's got more rope than any other manager who's sort of come
Exactly, yeah.
Because he's come. I know everyone's come at a funny time since Ferguson left. Blah 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 blah. But I think it is particularly odd and
it gets
depressing because of like the way the finances are and the way Sir Jim Ratcliffe just is as a human being, sadly.
It gets lower every time, doesn't it? With each manager. No manager's been like, right, I've actually done quite well here. I'm going to pop off. Yeah. I mean, I thought West Ham played pretty well. They showed a lot of things that United didn't have in terms of they knew they were organised quite well. Even like someone like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, his part in the 2 goals from left wing back for a player who isn't necessarily, well, he's not particularly great on the ball, but he had very clear instructions that he was able to follow, and that doesn't seem to be the case on the other side of the ledger with Manchester United. So,
yeah, I mean, Manchester United, they haven't won in 7 games. It's their joint longest winless run. All these stats keep coming through.
At least that's joint. At least there's another one there.
True enough.
It doesn't stand out on its own.
But this is where we are now. Just stat after stat, damning stat after stat, I should say. So you have that, and then off the field, you got Sir Jim up to his old tricks, not offering free tickets to staff for the Europa League final. And I know that the allocation for teams is quite low when you think about it. I think both sides are normally offered just over 50% of the tickets in the stadium, which is always quite an alarming thing. But that's the way they do it, and I'm sure a lot of people are critical of that, and understandably so. But with Man United not offering free tickets to staff for the Europa League final, one could say, well, then that frees up tickets for fans and stuff. But it's that kind of thing that it's so demoralising for members of staff at that club.
Well, we spoke about this, me and Jim, yesterday. Like, if you work for a football team, either at the ground or in the back office, like, you're probably not paid market rates for your skill base, and it is about everybody driving to one end, and everyone's
the love of the club, or the love of being there,
and being a good servant for something that you've sort of loved yourself, and so the fandom comes into that. So once you start losing that and start losing, feeling like the club doesn't respect you, then people are just going to fall away and just get a better job somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so kind of depressing. With all this stuff.
And I think you also made the point yesterday that, like, actually the money that you don't necessarily get for your particular skill set, that tends to be made up by those tickets, by that access to the thing you're putting towards.
Exactly.
And there's also the sense of kind of belonging, that kind of tribal feeling that we all sort of fall in love with when we're kids who choose our team or grow up with the team, however you come to support your team. There's that sense of being on the inside, and that has to be kind of, I suppose, validated by these little perks and things like that. And if you kind of cut those ties to the very people that make up the organisation, then there's just no upside to that. Well, they must feel like they've gone from working for a club to working for a company, because that's how he's running it.
I mean, how much? I don't know, but how much money does that save them? 10 grand, 50 grand. Whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's to me that it just strikes me as not worth it.
Even if it was 100 grand, it's compared to the wastage elsewhere. It's
especially because like the major kind of wastage just seems to be happening on the pitch. The amount of money that they pay, they overpay for players and have done for the last 10 years. If you're sitting in the back office and watching them do that, you're like, well, why is there no biscuits in the kitchen?
We should give him credit though, because they are holding a ballot with a small number of tickets available for their staff though. But for the majority, there's
nothing like getting internal staff at as Jim
jealous
said,
of each other.
A company
divide and conquer.
It feels to be like loving you less and less. Getting them to turn on each other's
ballot.
game.
What about the Hunger Games?
I say ballot, but it is actually a wrestling match.
Right.
For the majority,
Can
though,
everyone wear one of these collars?
For the majority, they are hosting a screening in Manchester with the invite open to +1s, and the member of staff will be given 2 free drinks. Okay, the guests will have to pay for this, but they will be given 2.
You know why they do that?
It's just like, put an extra 200 quid behind the bar, you dick.
So I used to work for a company that did that, and obviously it's because you use the free drink for your mate.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah.
Don't know what you're doing, but
I've brought my own yard glass.
But it feels like a test by Jim Ratcliffe, that, doesn't it? It's like, you can have 2 drinks or you can give one away to some scrounger.
But that's what they should do.
What are you going to choose?
The place where they're having the screening should very much like be in on it with the members of staff. So the free drink is a yard of whatever you want of your choice. Do you know what I mean? Like, they should all like really kind of
Play album, Alan.
Yeah, Spurs are offering a complimentary ticket to every full-time employee.
Because why wouldn't you?
For that reason, I hope they win,
They
Jim.
want everyone
I'm
to see
saying that
what's
to
going to
you, and I'm
happen.
saying that to Sir Jim. Let's turn our attention then to Tottenham Hotspur, who did very well against Palace, because it could have been about 5-0. They managed to keep it down to 2.
Really? You're right.
mad.
You are so right.
That
There were
was-
so many chances.
Oh,
And it was mostly the same chance,
The
wasn't it?
same
Yeah.
chance from the same perspective. Munoz had a go, Sarr had a go, everyone had a go from the same place.
I mean, Munoz just had the freedom of the pitch, didn't he? As you say, it was the same chance over and over again. He was just marauding. I mean, the word marauding
it
is
was
the only
invented
one
for the
that's
kind of
fitting there.
moves
Even in his own personal
Time-
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, time after
It was like
time.
a training drill. They're like, do the same thing
Yeah.
5
Yeah,
times and see
yeah.
how many you put away. I mean, like, he pushed for that move to Palace from, was it Genk? I think it was Genk or Ghent, I can't forget which one. But his agent was doing a bit of work there. I imagine he's probably doing a bit of work at Man City or Liverpool, because like they both need that position filled, and I think he's such a talented footballer. I'd be very scared to. I know he's just signed a new contract, but I'd be very scared to lose him in the close season for mega bucks.
Well, I mean, everyone's got their price, right? And he's certainly a player who people are looking at, because obviously he's a wing back, so their role is to basically own one side of the pitch. But those wing backs, full backs, whatever you want to call them. I mean, Anthony Robinson is one at Fulham who's under the spotlight, and Kirkage at Bournemouth is another one. They effectively play 2 positions. It's almost like you got a 12th man on the pitch. There's such a premium these days. So Palace
With end
will do.
product as well is such a big.
Oh my goodness, yes. So Palace will do well to keep hold of him. But again, though, look at this Palace side. They've got a cup final to look forward to. It's funny because when you look at the league table, I mean, they've done similar to what they did last season. Second half of the season, they've done very, very well. Although that was their first win in 6, we should say. In
Oh,
the
no
league.
one's complaining that they might be in the Europa League next season, are they? So everyone's having to go little old Manchester United.
But Palace are 12th in the league. I mean, they could finish higher, possibly, but they're comfortably 12th. And
10 points ahead of Manchester United in 16th.
it was really, I mean, with Glasner, there's been 1 or 2 suggestions, would perhaps he look elsewhere. But I'd love to see Glasner stay, and I'd love to see all these players stay. They wouldn't have a Euros in between where 1 or 2 of the players may be a bit fatigued. Perhaps no transfer saga with one of the most important players. Just to see what they could do next season, because we've seen Bournemouth, it obviously faded away a little bit. We've seen, for us, what could Palace do playing like this with this team, firing all cylinders straight from the off.
You know what though? But I think one of the real boons that they have at the moment is Glasner, isn't it?
Totally.
We've seen so many players kind of really, really step up and really flourish under him. Chris Richards is the sort of latest example of a player who's starting to get their flowers because they've been performing really, really well under Glasner. So if they can keep him, even if they do lose a few players, which I think is probably likely, I think there's still a good reason to expect Palace to be able to build on what they've done this season, even losing some star men, because he clearly knows how to replace them, and he clearly knows how to get a tune out of whoever's available to him.
Yeah, I mean, they've got enough players that you would imagine wouldn't have so much interest, but are performing very, very well. So someone like Will Hughes plays his part, or I even say like someone like Lacroix at the back, who I just love his relationship with the fans. Like, he's such a cheerleader, such a vital part of that very impressive defence. And my goodness, I mean, if they win the cup final, which I really hope they do. Especially as Fulham are probably not going to finish 8th now. But no, I always felt that anyway, just if he's conducting the crowd at the end of that game, it'll be such a wonderful and heartwarming thing for any kind of neutral, and obviously Palace fans. My goodness, they'll be in orbit by that point. If they can do it. But sorry, Palace fans, I'm talking about the Caesar celebration, and you're going, shut up, for crying out loud.
Also,
sorry.
Yeah. Also, sorry to Palace fans, but I don't disagree with anything we've said about Glasner, but Eberechi Eze is the most important person at that club
we've just talked about the game, and we're talking about Palace.
Yeah.
He gets both goals.
But he gets both goals. He ran the game again, as he has done for a large part of this back end of the season. He started quite. He started quite tentatively because obviously they lose Elise, and actually Munoz started quite tentatively because he was pushed further forward, and he kind of almost prefers a bit more of a run up. But when
he's probably thinking, I'm leaving a lot of space. Are you sure? And Glasner's like, trust me.
Yeah, go on,
trust
son.
me.
Yeah.
You'll be absolutely fine. Anyway, sorry, Vish.
But Eze's taken time to get back into this form. This is the best he's ever been playing.
He's a glorious footballer.
He's not rediscovered form. He's discovered a new level.
But the numbers are coming. So with a player like him,
the numbers are coming, and another number is coming in terms of someone taking them off their hands. The one thing I think is helping them is I don't know that there's a particular vacancy for the role Eze plays, but it might be a situation.
Well, in some of the top clubs, you're saying?
In terms of clubs who could take him off their hands.
Yeah.
But the one thing I would say about that as well is it could be a Man City Grealish type situation where a big club sees him and thinks, you are so technically gifted, you can actually do many different things in our team.
He apparently has a release clause that comes into play this summer, but it is quite high. It's something like 67 million around that. So that's...
I don't think that's high enough,
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, if you're Palace, you've got to get him around the contract table, surely, if you're the hierarchy of that club. But he's a wonderful player, we know this. But when I talk about the numbers, we know the talent he has, we know the skill he has, and all that kind of stuff. We've seen other players like that before, but you've then got to consistently impact games, because he'd show flashes here and there, and it's like Glasner would be saying to him and everybody, like, week in, week out. And inevitably, that will attract huge clubs. I mean, he's already on everybody's radar, for crying out loud. But then every game or every other game, you're getting an assist or two, maybe getting a goal or whatever, you're having the kind of influence that we all know that he can have. But the sky's the limit for Eze, and I think, as I like to do, link it back to England from time to time.
Of course. That
left side, I mean, it's a different option for, say, someone like Anthony Gordon, but the World Cup's not that far away. He'll have his eyes on it. Of course he will.
Which might be a reason for him, like a great reason for him to stay, because he's playing a bit further forward. He's playing in a system that Glasner has put together expertly well, where he thrives in it. Playing in a team that's thriving ahead of Euros, playing in a team where you're moving to a different team where you don't necessarily get the same amount of game time, puts that at risk.
Scoring a winner in a World Cup final and then giggling.
Yes.
Yeah, he had a little giggle, didn't he, after the first goal?
That was funny, wasn't it? So Spurs, like Palace, they're in a final.
Yes,
they're in a final as well, Peter. Don't deny them that.
Well, they're fielding a makeshift side, I would say, but very few green shoots to get excited about here.
Ange was a bit prickly, wasn't he?
He's
more so to the point of when they showed that part of the interview on Match of the Day 2 on Sunday evening. Mark Chapman, right, who's a brilliant presenter, like one of the best presenters on TV, certainly in the sports realm, but you could say generally speaking, it just cut to him and he just sort of went. Like it was annoying. Words fail me. What can you say about Postecoglou? The way he now is responding. I mean, he's been doing this for a while, but
there's this kind of he kind of cryptically rebuffs criticism. It's like, well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then I don't know how to explain it to you. It's like, but it isn't really that clear what you actually mean, is it?
You've lost 20 games in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just asking you reasonable. I understand when the press back are there and press conferences, let's be honest, the press in this country can be dicks, right? But when it's just like a BBC reporter just asking quite earnestly after the game, okay, I get that he's dragged down and so on, but
I think
I can't imagine he'll. If he win, some of the chat now is if they won the Europa League, should he have the right to then stay on the following season and manage them in the Champions League?
Does he want to?
Well, this is the thing, Vish. I think that
him and Amorim walking into the sunset.
I think it's easy to look at that possibility now, but I think the reality of what it will be like if they actually win the Europa League will be so euphoric.
True.
I think the context will be very different.
Yeah,
that's fair.
There's a danger in conflating the situation of Manchester United and Spurs and their reaction to the trophy and what the Europa League actually means to them.
Yeah, because
it's far more of a vessel for Manchester United to get into the Champions League. Not that the fans won't celebrate it or have an amazing time if it happens, but certainly from the club's perspective, it's that.
Just to jump in there, because Amorim has said himself, he said, if we win the Europa League, like to forget about that. There's so many problems because they have so many problems riddled throughout that club. Spurs, you can't say the same thing.
No, because Spurs will treat it authentically as this is what football's about. It's about winning things and enjoying and absolutely enjoying these moments.
And despite what the fans think of leaving, and I understand that, and I'm not pushing back on that, Spurs just generally as that club and is a far better state than Manchester United.
Yeah.
Well, better state, maybe not far better, but do you know what I mean? No, come on,
This feels more like an anomaly than kind of proper like rot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. Weirdly, it does have that feel. I can't quite put my finger on it.
They were very close to qualifying for the Champions League last season.
Yeah.
Perhaps you're right, Jim. Maybe I mean, Ange did say Spurs does funny things to people.
Yes, and they did have a crazy amount of injuries at one point, and lots of clubs suffer through that. And I think that's still partially what he's referring to in that post-match interview, isn't it? That they had that situation where it was really down to the bare bones, and that cost them points. And I don't know. I think he's so bored of answering questions, he's kind of not really listening to them and answering a previous question that annoyed him in a gruff manner. So we're left trying to sort of decipher it.
He loves a pre-match conference, but he doesn't like a post-match conference for obvious reasons.
Which is on him at the moment, isn't it? Let's be honest.
That's a really good point, actually, because obviously you've got the emotion of post-match as well. But I think there's something to be said for that, especially.
He really holds court, doesn't he? He really loves sort of doing jokes and stuff.
Especially because there's always a danger of judging like a manager's entire personality on post-match rather than pre-match.
That's a fair point. I mean, it like Manchester United and West Ham, like it is sort of like the league. I mean, obviously there's financial incentives to move up the table wherever you are, but the fact is the performance against Palace and so many performances have been so piss poor. So piss poor that, again, I take the point that it might have been a mid-table-ish kind of season or whatever, and actually, had that have been the case and they're on for Europa League, you could have gone, well, all right, fair enough. I just think it's been so poor in the league that it's kind of like, Ange, mate, like, to use his words, but what else can we ask you about?
How else are we to interpret this?
Yes, exactly. But
he seems to think that anyone who thinks Tottenham are having a shit season doesn't know anything about football.
Yeah, it's come to kind of that, and I understand it's,
I quite admire it.
In a way.
It's so schoolboy.
Yeah.
It's just like, you don't get it because you're an idiot.
Yeah, but as I've said before, though.
I'm not an idiot. Yeah, you are.
If they win, like, it will be amazing because of that quote so early in the season. Yeah, like, I always win a trophy in my second season, or whatever it was to that effect. It will be stunning if they can win that trophy. And to see the key change in Ange is tantalising. It's absolutely tantalising.
Obviously, as a Manchester United fan, I hope it doesn't happen. And, look, I'm not doing this to jinx it, but I think the thing about Ange that people have good reason to forget because of how things have gone is that he does properly love football. And I know it's a ridiculous thing to say about someone who works in an industry which is hard to get into and you can't get into without loving it dearly. But
Pep Guardiola does not love football.
No, but he does. But
no, he's obsessed.
No, he's obsessed with managing. He's not obsessed by football. I think that's the difference.
I couldn't agree more.
It's all just a big puzzle for him.
There's a bit of like sex dungeon about how he's now.
Yeah.
He's trying to find new ways.
Yeah. I just don't think he sees the football. I don't think he sees the football. He just sees the space between the footballers. Maybe. He's like a kind of like savant for like. It's like when you look at like a Rorschach test and you see your mum have sex with your dad, like it's all just like that. You see the little blobs, but you don't see the actual image, I suppose.
You see the blobs.
Yeah.
You see the blobs.
But the thing he talks about at the very start. I'm going to move on from that so quickly. No one wants to think of their parents having sex.
We got close to a whole show with no grot.
Speaking of great films I've seen Alfie Whiteman's Letterboxd reviews?
I haven't.
No.
Alfie Whiteman, the goalkeeper for Spurs, he reviews films online. It's
Does he?
He seems quite right on as well, so I think you said yesterday he's never going to play it.
Yeah. Blimey. Vish, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, well...
you want to go back to the grot?
Now I'm thinking of Ange's parents. What am I doing?
But you don't know what they look like, do you? So is it just two Anges?
Yeah.
It'll be in a ute with some chucks.
But basically, the thing he talked about at the start when he said "let fans dream." And the idea that he could, started last season, and who knows, they could win it and he could still get sacked, and that wouldn't be totally unreasonable, to be fair. But you don't really get that as a manager. No. You don't be able, even though always when thinking to my second trophy, you don't get to like speak of something and spend a season trying to speak something into existence, which in this case was Tottenham taking themselves seriously as a football club, not just removing the perception of other fans, and then to deliver that even if it ends up in whatever chaotic way it ends up in, is so rare that I would be quite happy for him.
No, I understand. All right, coming up after this, Fulham finally opened their swimming pool, and a familiar face could be returning to management. Welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody. Yes, Fulham seems unlikely that they'll be playing in Europe next season, even if Man City do win the FA Cup, because Brentford, their noisy neighbours are in 8th on 55 points, Fulham on 51 points. They do play Brentford, actually, but Brentford in good shakes, and Fulham, Bournemouth and Brighton are in between the two, so a bit of a shame. But the big story really is, who else in the Premier League has a swimming pool at their ground?
Yeah, this is massive news, isn't it? It's finally open.
Yes, it is.
Who were the first people to have a dip?
I thought I would be.
Apparently.
I thought I would be. Yeah. But I'm waiting. Until Hugh Grant and I can finally have that conversation that we're overdue.
Are you? It's awkward to take swimming gear to a football match, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the logistics of that. How would you approach it, Marcus? You take a little gym bag or something?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Obviously,
but
a
then they're going
beach
to be
ball
wet.
as well.
Like, you got wet shorts with you for the game, or
Yeah, that's it.
They have one of those little spinny machines. But like the beach ball obviously disrupted the game back in the day.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not allowed to bring
Sunderland.
inflatables, yeah.
Don't think we'll see a swimming pool at the Stadium of Light anytime soon.
No, it might be a little...
Smug.
I know, yeah.
The smug Fulham
Oh,
on that.
wow.
What's wrong with that?
Oh, only Southerners know what to do with the swimming pool. You think they might wash their clothes in it? Is that what you're thinking?
disgraceful.
No, I don't think they're going to get promoted this season.
Leave
and I
their
don't...
livestock to drink from it.
Right, here we go. I've been to Sunderland and contributed to the local economy. Have you?
Have you?
You think this...
I've invested in the local
All
economy.
I'm hearing from you is, Marcus, that
Yeah.
they're going to throw their dead into the swimming pool in Sunderland,
Yeah.
in the Sunderland Stadium
In
of
the
Light
Sunderland
Pool.
plague pit.
You thought you went too far there. You thought of that, and that's come back on you. You've
trying to-
deflected brilliantly away from me, and now you've let you know of what you think of those people in that town.
No.
Before accidentally turning the gun on himself.
No, I don't think we'll see a swimming pool at any Premier League or Championship ground.
Just that London's Fulham.
Unless Jim Ratcliffe can really come up trumps with that water feature.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the swimming pool, you won't be able to watch the game from the swimming pool, disappointingly.
That is a shame.
That is disappointing.
Yeah.
So is it like an infinity pool? Does it like spread out over the
What?
like into the Thames? It's on the other side. I appreciate
It's just behind the dugout.
Yeah. Just splashing the opposition manager.
No, it's up. So it's obviously in the new stand, which
Yeah,
is next,
yeah.
which is on the Thames.
Yeah.
So is it just part of like a general spa feature that they're using to make money like around games
Right.
day?
I love how I'm being asked like I've
You
been there.
are,
and seen it.
yeah.
You've had access to all the same
He's not allowed
websites
in.
as me.
He's not allowed in with that hair. He'll just plug it all up.
Well, we'll see, won't we?
Plug it all up with
Plug
gunk.
it all up. They've got professional unpluggers
I like
for me.
for you. I like that it's Michelin star inspired menus. We can all do that.
Exactly. Yeah. What does it mean? It's a lot of money for not very much.
Yeah. Comes on a plate.
Yeah, a
No,
small
but
plate.
what I think
Is it Michelin star? Well, I said there was, didn't I?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, it's inspired by Michelin Star.
This egg.
Yeah.
But
it's
surely
it's inspired by true events.
But all
This
meals
film.
are Michelin star inspired because
Yeah.
Michelin stars are judged on.
Not all meals.
Well, yes, because the
Cornflakes.
Yeah, but you'd make cornflakes in your own way to make them palatable to you,
Yeah.
to make them tasty.
Yes, yes, of course. Yes, at my breakfast every morning.
Yeah, that's astonishing
It's food, isn't
praise.
it?
Yeah.
It's just food, baby.
It's just food.
We've
baby.
tried to make it tasty. It's Michelin star inspired.
Yeah,
Inspired.
but I think with Fulham's new stand, because like it's such a lovely spot, isn't it, on the Thames?
Yeah.
and but it is one of those things with football stadiums where you make it really nice and you think just once a week. Can we? Come on, let's all come down here on a Tuesday night as well or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously it's like a sort of a very swanky members sort of thing.
Of course.
So you can hang out there in the summer and during the off season.
It'd be great if
down
you.
there.
Glancing at the pre-season results in North America or the Far East or wherever, So that's what it is. It's all so Fulhamish, yeah, absolutely. But the bigger question at Fulham is concerning the manager. Of course, back to footballing matters, if we may. He's been dealing with questions about his future, Marco Silva, linked to Saudi Arabia again, as he was in the past, recently in recent seasons of Fulham. The Spurs link will not go away, and that's on Postecoglou, I feel. But he dealt with the questions before the Everton game, which Fulham duly lost 3-1, and said, of course, there are always rumours, but what I can say to you right now is that my future is at Fulham Football Club next season. So that's explicit.
Yeah.
Which is what we want to hear, certainly as Fulham fans, I think.
You still sound worried, though.
Yeah, because people say a lot of things, don't they?
Sure.
Yeah. I was pleased that he has been explicit there, so I think that is quite reassuring. But I also know that he is, what is he, about 47, 48? He's still a young manager, very ambitious, very, very talented manager, I think. He's got a lot of, a lot going for him. And with that loss against Everton at home, it is a bit of a damning one, because Fulham, I think if I'm right in remembering, they're 1 win away from, I think, a record points tally in the Premier League.
Wow.
But they've got to play Brentford away, which is not an ideal game, certainly not at the moment. And then they've got Man City on the final day, so you never know. Man City, you would imagine, would be all guns blazing for Champions League places, so it's a tricky end to the season. And this game against Everton was like, that was one where they did the thing where they kind of dominated, but they couldn't press home their advantage, and then they lose some sloppy goals. And my concern is that with Marco Silva, because as you know, I rate him very, very highly, and I think fair few people do, still young, he's still got time to really kind of spread his wings. And even if his next move, wherever that would be, didn't go that well, I think he would still have time to kind of then go and do something. So I just, my concern is, what do you guys think from your position? Does he get to a point where he goes, I've taken this team as far as I can now?
I think if Fulham could play as well as Marco says they play after every match. He is quite a big kind of Angie. Oh, he played quite well, actually. It's like you did, Nick, because you lost it. I think so. Maybe it would be perfect as Spurs, but their inability to defend corners and free kicks and stuff is really sort of costing them this late stage of the season. It's just about concentration, isn't it? Really?
And with Fulham, you see what obviously Forest have done this season. Seen what Palace are doing this season in terms of getting to a final. With Marco Silva, the owner Khan said, "Oh well, we want him to be here forever," kind of thing. That's how highly he's rated. Unlikely to get that at another club. So there's that. You are at a solid mid-table side who are looking up the table.
Is this the best squad Fulham have had in the Premier League era?
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
And there are players like Anthony Robinson who, he almost went elsewhere before, but there are players in there who are wanted by other clubs one way or another. And I suppose the two are linked, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Because they're there with Marco Silva, they're playing a certain way, the results aren't necessarily going the right way.
Yeah.
Much in the same way that he's having to come out and talk about these rumours, so it's different from you don't know who else in the squad or on the playing side of it are looking elsewhere as well.
Yeah. And I think with last season, there was chance of Europe, and they kind of just sort of faded away a little bit. Went to the latter stages, semi-final of the League Cup. They've done all right in cup competitions. This season, it's kind of ending up like the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quarter-final of the FA Cup, but then firmly beaten by Palace. They've fallen away, and it's that thing with Fulham. It's like, right, are you going to go all in and go, let's try and crash into the top 8?
Yeah.
And you've got to spend there. And Smith Rowe's not quite worked out, maybe next season, but it's all maybe ifs and buts. Does he want another season where it's kind of similar, or is he thinking, right, next season we're going to crack it? And my concern as a Fulham fan is that he might just go, do you know what? Maybe I've done all I can.
Well, I think...
But that's your... You know what it's like with your own club.
Absolutely.
You worry about it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely you do. You kind of consider all the angles, and you see all the exit routes for those that you like at the club. But
now I want you to reassure me.
Well, I think actually how I would reassure you, Marcus, is that I think...
Swimming pool.
You've got a swimming pool, which you have access to, I assume.
Enjoy
because that space opens doors, doesn't it? As we've been discovering on tour. But I think... Silva is at the point where he will absolutely be there next season. He's stated that, and we have no reason to disbelieve him on that. And if kind of bigger clubs are circling him or considering him, the proving ground for which he is going to convince them is Fulham. So I think, if he is going to leave for kind of bigger and brighter things, because, he's managed some big clubs and it's not quite worked out yet, so clubs will have kind of reservations as well. It will happen because he has success at Fulham. So I think it might be that if you do end up losing him, it will be in a situation where actually it's kind of worth it, because maybe they do get into Europe, or maybe they do have maybe even win a trophy, or which is difficult for them and maybe unlikely. But as you say, there's a lot of
so the tailing off
quality that he has.
The tailing off at the end of the season actually goes in Fulham fans' favour.
Well, if you want to read it like that, but I think they're in a position to have a better season next season than this season, because there were a lot of silly points they dropped, and I think that he's a manager with with another season of experience under his belt in the Premier League and with another transfer window can probably address that and get them to kick on. So I think I don't think he's at a stage at the moment where you need to worry too much about losing him.
See, if I was Fulham, I would be trying. They've done well in the transfer market, a couple of years ago when they got Joao Palhinha, for example, it was incredible. But there are a couple of players who are being talked about for big clubs. If I was Fulham, I would try and have a cheeky bid for someone like Liam Delap. Do you know what I mean? I would say, well, why would you go to Man United? It'd be all over the place. Your reputation. Look what's happened to Rasmus Højlund. Our big clubs. Whereas you say, come to Fulham. We've got a settled team. You're going to play. Got a swimming pool and all. You can have a dip in there after the game, if you pay your fee. That's what I'd be saying to players. Like, we have a settled side. Look at the way we play. We'll play to your strengths, and one or two others going in there. Because what he is good at doing, Silva, is getting the likes of Iwobi and Traore and all those players we've seen, and getting a better tune out of them. Traore slightly better, but certainly with Iwobi is a great example. So. But with the signing of, say, Smith Rowe, like they did last season, that's. Okay, you've had a season, right? Let's kick on now. But they've got to spend.
Yeah,
this is it. But as I say, every Premier League side, it's like, they've got to have a big summer.
Yeah,
they've got to have a big summer.
Some Scrooge McDuck inspired buying.
Exactly.
Fill the pool full of gold coins.
Exactly,
and treasure.
There we are.
Then have a little swim in it.
There we. Lovely call.
How does he not hurt himself when he dives in it from?
I think he does, doesn't he?
No, he dives. He swims around.
He doesn't have any bones. He got him taken out because he's rich. Didn't need him.
So he could,
Like that Brian Johnson bloke.
Got the ribs, take the ribs out first. I see. Okay, mucked up.
Naughty Scrooge.
Oh dear. Let's move on from that and talk about Sean Dyche. Something less fancy.
Okay.
Former Everton man is an apparent contender for the Leicester City job.
Ball bag inspired Sean Dyche.
There we are. Ruud van Nistelrooy winning 4 of 24 games in charge hasn't convinced them.
No.
And they are.
Why is he still at the club? It just seems.
Why not?
Why?
Every time he pops up in the post-match interview, I'm like, he's still there.
So Sean Dyche is apparently a big contender for the Leicester City job, which of course will be in the Championship next season. Liam Manning and Russell Martin have also been linked to the club. I find the Russell Martin link interesting because he was obviously on Matchday 2 on Sunday night, and he said they turned down offers and it's got to be a right fit for him and all the rest of it, as you could imagine. Leicester, having been promoted the previous season quite impressively under Maresca with a kind of more passing style and all the rest of it, Martin, they could try and sell him and go, right, boys, let's turn that around. But we will learn from Southampton's mistake. We'll sack you if we get promoted and then try and get someone else in the Premier League. But all jokes aside, I could see that. But then Sean Dyche, Jim, he can't be denied, can he?
I do think that the fun's truly over when you bring Dyche in, isn't it? I know that it was a long time ago now that they won the league, and it was also a long time ago now that they won the FA Cup. But it's still roundabout of that generation for some fans. It's just it's done, isn't it? It's done when Dyche comes in.
They did have a good time when they got promoted.
Yeah, of course.
Under Maresca, so it was obviously very recent. Dyche. I wonder if Dyche. It'd be interesting. Because I think the Championship would be where he's going to be getting offers now.
Yeah.
Because if you think about the clubs, 19 clubs at time of recording are going to be in the Premier League next season. None of them I could imagine Sean Dyche managing now. Leeds United, they don't want to turn to Dyche even if it goes badly under Farke in the Premier League, and Burnley going from Scott Parker to Sean Dyche. I think that would be probably unlikely as well. And then you think West Ham and the other teams down there, Man United and Spurs, they're not going to turn to Dyche. So I think it would be a championship job. I think that would be an absolutely plum job for Dyche in terms of the size of the club, what they could maybe do next season. It's always an interesting one. I mean, will they be like Luton or will they be like Leeds, try and turn it around?
I can't imagine there'd be anything like Luton.
I can't either, but the cut and thrust of the championship can do funny things to teams. But I think that Dyche now, that's where he'll be seen as a championship manager. But could he be the Dyche, whereas he gets Burnley up into the Premier League, and he did very well when they got relegated and got them back up as well. If you're a Leicester fan, I can't imagine you'd be thrilled at the prospect of Sean Dyche. But has he got a bit of magic left in him? Championship magic left, Vish, in there. Back to basics. You're down on your luck. This is not good. Right, we know what we're doing here, and get them out of that league, or at least be contenders for the championship or playoff spots.
I don't even know if magic is the right word for it. It's appetite, isn't it? Because it's
clearly magic is not the right word for Sean Dyche.
But it's a different it's a different task altogether. There's almost it's so demanding on not just like, but you're actually physically demanding for the players, but like it's mentally demanding, but also ideologically it's quite demanding. You see what Scott Parker's been able to do with Burnley this year. There is a sense of this is a means to an end, which is why we're all fascinated to see what they do in the Premier League next year. And with say if it is Leicester or someone else, Dyche has got to come in and almost kind of set his stall out as almost start from scratch and kind of remind himself what it is like to build up a Burnley, as it were, a team from his own ideas. So. Yeah, I don't like.
He can motivate it. I mean, look at what he did at Everton. We give credit up, obviously, to the point, and then by the time he goes, it was right for him to go because it was.
Yeah, and it is worth mentioning with Burnley under Dyche that they did have some exciting players. They were functional, but they also had players who were allowed to be a bit more off the cuff.
Seems a long time ago now.
It is, yeah. But then you get a squad. So, for example, if the squad he gets, well, naturally, because of how much time has passed, as you've alluded to there are more ball players now in squads. There are more people who are comfortable in possession, and it'd be interesting to see how Dyche works with that.
I mean, he's not that old, Dyche. He's only 53.
Yeah.
But I feel now that...
He plays up his age.
Yeah, but I feel now, though, that with Dyche... You're right. If to highlight Burnley and Scott Parker and so on, it used to be that you could just be solid and basic and get your way up through the championship into the Premier League. Perhaps we're seeing maybe a little bit more, but time will tell. But I wonder if now he is the manager if you have a side in the championship who are maybe dropping or they're relegation threatened or they're, and he gets in back to basics and...
Point deductions.
And sorts of because, he's still, as I say, he can still motivate a team. And again, we give him credit for most of what he did at Everton. But I don't know, it's the most inspiring appointment. But I think Russell Martin might be an interesting one.
Also, what could you do with Everton?
There is that. Maybe we're being harsh, Jim. Maybe we'll be back in the Premier League sooner than you think.